Hey guys, before we get started, I've got a quick favor to ask. I need you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast if you feel you're getting value from it. That's how we're going to get these conversations in front of more people. And just as important, if not more important, is your feedback. The good, the bad, the ugly. I want the critical information on how we can make this podcast better for you and deliver value every time. And if you know somebody in Louisiana who's doing big things in their field, industry, or business, please drop their name in the comments. We'd love to have the opportunity to bring them on the show. At the end of the day, this is all about the youth of Louisiana and putting local leaders in front of them and giving them something real to learn from. Now let's get it. What's up, everybody? It's your host for the For Profit Podcast, Matthew Pierce, and I've got some very interesting guests with us here today, and their story is extremely unique, one of perseverance, strength, resolve, and the unwillingness to give up. And we've got a full studio today. I've got my co-host, Miss Laura Mai Gaynor, and I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Fox and Mr. Rob Richardson. So thank y'all for coming on today.
Thank y'all for having us. Yes.
Yeah, so we were actually introduced by my good friend Twee, who owns Bayou Braces. Shout out Twee, shout out Dr. Rose, shout out Bayou Braces.
Yes.
And Twee connected us because you guys have a lot of work in this not-for-profit called Fox Family Ministries, which basically helps people get, like people who need it get legal representation, people who might otherwise not be able to afford it. And then we found out the reason why you guys started this, and I was like, oh my God. And they are actually they have like a documentary on Amazon Prime. Go watch it. It's called Time. It's actually an Academy Award nominated documentary, and it's an amazing story. And I would love to have you guys kind of tell from your perspective the overview, and then we'll go into more questions after that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Yep. I think for those that are seeing us for the very first time, we are collectively known as Fox and Rob Rich, and we're a formerly incarcerated couple who spent more than 21 years behind bars before receiving
those 4 days, 21
4
years.
days,
Yeah.
21 years and 4 days, because
Fox was counting them down.
Hey.
And that being said, we spent those 21 years and 4 days in prison before receiving clemency from our previous governor in 2018, actually. And probably one of the biggest takeaways that Fox and I really pulled from this experience was the notion that to be free is to free others. Mm-hmm. And so she prayed, I cried out, and basically saying that, if ever we were given an opportunity to leave this place, meaning prison, that we would use any platform that was given to us as a platform to speak for those that didn't necessarily reap the same benefit that we reaped, even though it was some 20 plus years later. But I left behind in prison a lot of people who I found there. And after doing 21 years, I left them there. So you can imagine. And so at any rate, coming home out of that experience, probably about 6 months after I got home, Fox and I were inspired to start a practice of participatory defense. It is
We launched a ministry, and through that ministry, one of our initiatives was
participatory defense, but it's where we teach legal awareness as a best form of defense to people that are system impacted. And that is not, I guess, all of what we do or what we've done, but we're also the subjects of the Oscar-nominated documentary Time that is streaming live on Amazon Prime Video, and we are also the creative force behind its sequel, which is Time to Unfinished Business, where Fox has gotten her directorial debut on in this particular one. But
Okay.
yeah, so that is I guess a quick briefing, in terms of like who we are, and I guess how we're on the for-profit show, because boy, freedom is for-profit.
Well, I gotta say as well, so this was your directorial debut, but you holding it down, mother of 6, while he's in prison, right? Because you only served a 3-year sentence.
not that only off of that, Laura.
Laura,
I can tell
you
ain't had no
speaking from such
handcuffs on you.
privilege,
That
Laura.
girl said
Yeah.
only.
I'm sure that 3 felt like 30.
My bad. My point was to say you had a lot of time where he was in there, you were not. Not only were you the mother of 6 kids and you eventually became a director, but I also saw you got a PhD, you were an author. Like, I'd love you to just list all your credentials for people, because it's like, not only have you done all this and you were going through so much, but you freaking skyrocketed. You have so many credentials, so I'd love to hear what they are.
Well, I don't know if it would be like credentialing as much
Get
as
on
it
out
is.
there.
No,
Oh,
no.
look at him. This good husband
I
right
like it
there.
accomplishments, the things you've accomplished in life.
I would probably say that one of the biggest things that I have accomplished in my life is that I maintained my family through one of the worst experiences that I think is known to mankind.
Yeah.
Next to being a life-threatening illness, mass incarceration, which plagues our state. Louisiana leads the entire world in incarceration. We
Wow.
lock up more people per capita than any other place on the planet Earth. And New Orleans leads Louisiana. So where we live is in the belly of the beast, if you would.
Yeah.
And so to say that through our work with Rich Family Ministries and our efforts, our program, Participatory Defense Movement, NOLA, we have given to other families freedom. We have saved, we judge our success by how much time we save someone versus how much time they've been sanctioned to serve.
Yeah.
And to date, our organization has saved over 4,000 years of people serving time behind bars.
Wow.
And our national organizations, it's 40 hubs across the country. We are the only hub in the state of Louisiana. We have collectively saved over 40,000 years of time behind bars nationally.
That's incredible.
And so when you think about freedom, it just, when you have been a slave before, when you have been enslaved, it gives you a different perspective of what it means to have liberty, to be able to choose what you're going to eat today, to choose when you're going to visit your loved ones, or when you'll be able to make a call. So for me, I think that the greatest accomplishment out of all the things was being able to maintain my family and free other families, and then to go on and have the wherewithal to document my family's journey. So it can be left, what happened to our family in Louisiana could be left in the annals of history to be studied by others, because I just believe that when we know better, we may do better as a society. Louisiana cannot afford to lead the world in incarceration. We could so better spend that money educating our young people, supporting struggling families, lifting people up out of the poverty level. And so to know that we instead use our resources to cage human beings is a disservice to us all. So those, out of all the things that I have done, are the things that I'm most grateful for.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And, I think back to the documentary. For those of you who hadn't seen it, Fox served 3.5 years, a long 3.5 years for the same crime that she participated with you, Rob, whereas they gave you a 60-year sentence. And how could one justify something like that? How could there be no, out early on good behavior? You had to wait, and she had to fight for so long to get you released off of, one decision that you made. It was unreasonable when I watched this documentary. How could you say that this crime, without taking a human life, because there are more severe crimes, but deserved a sentence of 60 years? It was just mind-blowing to me, and how many people that this has happened to that are sitting in jail right now on maybe lesser things, serving time that is just unreasonable. And that's what you guys really fight for, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Because just when you think about the sentencing process, when I got sentenced, even after fumbling, my lawyer fumbling the original plea bargain that we were offered for the offense. Initially, Fox was offered probation, where she never would have went to prison. I was offered 10 to 18 years pending a pre-sentence investigation. It's where they kind of do a background check and see what kind of person were you prior to the transgression. And they make a determination at that point in terms of like the range of sentencing. But for 10 to 18 years is what the judge had initially said, and the same for my nephew as well. But quite the opposite happened. And we ultimately ended up going to trial. And after trial, we were ultimately, as first offenders, all of us in this crime, received a 19, 45, and 61-year sentence, respectively. And initially, the district attorney that was prosecuting the case ended up having me sentenced to 60 years. And then he brought me back for additional charges for tampering with the jury. And in the state of Louisiana, when you tamper with the jury, you face the same amount of time for the crime that the jury is impaneled for.
Why did he think you tampered with the jury?
Because there was information shared with him from one of the jury members that I had a conversation with them in a sidebar. When you are when you're sworn into a jury, you're not supposed to have communication with the people that are standing trial.
So it was something you didn't even know not to
No,
do.
it was something
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
I pled guilty to it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
I wanted to share information that was being refused to be shared at trial.
Right.
I wasn't getting a fair shake in this process. So at any rate, the point that I was making out of it is that when I came back to answer for those two sets of charges, and again, just for context, you're talking about now that I'm facing 5 to 99 years for each count of a jury tampering that I was facing. So I was now moved from facing 5 to 99 years for the robbery, but now facing 297 years total.
Wow.
For the three offenses, meaning the bank robbery and the 2 counts of jury tampering. So by the time I came back to answer for the jury tampering charges after being sentenced to 60 years for the robbery, I thought at the day of sentencing that at worst, even though we went to trial, we blew this thing and everything, we tampered with the jury, maybe they might go north of 20 years, right? Never in a million years that I think that they would step aside that reasoning and then say, I think that a 60-year sentence is appropriate for a person who's ex-military, a person who is married, a person who is a homeowner, a person who has college education. I just never thought in a million years that that one of our state leaders would sentence so harshly. But he, at the point that I came back to answer for the jury tampering, he ultimately ended up removing any wondering that I had around it, because he explained to me why he sentenced me to 60 years. He says he gave me, for the jury tampering charges, he says, today is your lucky day. And I'm thinking maybe he's going to, reconsider the sentence or something, because I did, put in a motion to have the sentence reconsidered. And instead, he said, for the 2 jury tampering charges that you're facing, what I'm going to do, he says that I'm going to suspend all of the years on that charge all the way down to 5. And then he said, I'm going to run that 5 into the time that you're already doing for the armed robbery, meaning the 60 years. He says, then the other jury tampering charge, I'm going to suspend 4 of those years, and then I'm going to leave you with 1 year on that one. He said, but I'm going to need you to serve that one after you finish serving the 60.
Jesus.
He says, but the reason, but that would give you 61 years. And he's heading out of the door. Just as he gets to the door for effect, I guess, he turns to me and he says, did you ever wonder why 61 years? And I'm sitting there, I'm like burning on the inside, right? I'm like, wow, what is he doing?
Yeah.
And he says, well, the last time that a jury tampering happened in our little town was 1938. And this was 1999 when I got sentenced, so it was 61 years. And he told me, when you're in Angola State Penitentiary during this time, he says you'll think about the offense that you've made happen here, and maybe you'll be so inspired to tell others, don't F with Rustin.
Man, you giving me chills, Rob. That's
But that is what he was hired for. We have special prosecutors in our state that are, they're headhunters.
Yeah, they're not nice.
Playing.
They're not trying to be the good guy and,
Right,
and look for forgiveness and opportunity.
Being a good guy, it's just about fundamental fairness.
Fairness,
Exactly,
fair.
Well, it is when you know that statistics and studies have shown over and over again that when black people appear before a court system for the same charge as a white offender, they are sentenced to 5 times more amount of time than the white person is. And it's not an assumption that we make.
No, you're speaking facts.
It is documented.
Yeah.
And so I think that the best thing that is transferred into our work for profit is instead of being on the backside of helping people come home, helping people never go.
Yeah.
And so the latest initiative that we are working on with our ministry is promoting the sequel to our first film, which is Time 2 Unfinished Business, and available exclusively at time2movie.com, is a pledge to freedom that we have commissioned, Rob and I, to get people to sign, to commit, to never compromise their freedom. Yeah. We thought that we had no choice in the matter. We thought our back was against the wall, and we thought we had had no other options. But one thing we had to understand, in particular as Black people in the state of Louisiana, that no matter how bad things get for you, it is never bad enough for you to indulge in the commission of a crime, because you will pay far more than you will ever gain.
And I want to talk about that prior to this crime occurring. I know in the documentary it showed your family how tight-knit y'all were, and I love that scene where y'all are riding in the car together and the camera's looking at you and y'all two are smiling and just looked like a beautiful family. Y'all were business owners starting the first hip-hop clothing store in Shreveport, Louisiana. You had all these things going on, and this wasn't a crime that was committed out of a lifestyle. This was a crime that, like you said, it was backs against the wall, fear, desperation. What led to that? Like, kind of walk us through that. Like, how did it ever come to we need this money, we have to go take this money?
I think for me, if I can start and then you can take it, Rob. For me, it was taken, if you go back to that old biblical the story in the Bible where it talks about Peter taking his eyes off of Jesus while he's walking on water. And so it was really like in the state of our crisis, we took our eyes off God, from which cometh our help. And when you take your eyes away from God, then you think that you're responsible for it all. And if I can't fix it, it's not going to be fixed. And that's just not the truth.
When we think we have the power to control our destiny.
We are doing it all, and we are not doing it all. We don't even make our hearts beat. We don't even tell ourselves to breathe. It is all involuntary motions. You know, we can contribute to our breath, but we don't contribute to the higher power that operates our heartbeat at all. And so when you think about that, then it has to tell us that we are not operating our lives. The higher power is operating our lives. And so just in that moment when everything else began to fall apart from us, we couldn't see the forest for the trees, and we thought that this was it, and that, nobody's going to come and save us, and we better do this or else it's all going to be bad. And probably that piece, and the other piece was the court of public opinion. How many of us hang ourselves in the court of public opinion? So worried about what other people are going to say about us.
So critical of one another. If I fail, my people are going to look at me as pathetic and less than, and all these things.
We made the Shreveport Times newspaper business section full page article
for the business that was
for our business that we were opening. And so how can you come back from that and say, oh, well, we're really not going to open.
We
failed. We said we were going to open. And, because our investor pulled out on us at the last moment. The house that we had bought, we found out was not just a home. It was a hellhole. It had a cracked foundation and a leaky roof.
So just everything all hitting at once, a bunch of storms coming in once, and it just
hit at one time. Our son took sick, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with him. He was only 1 year old. And so it was just like, how can we, I lost my job. I'm teaching at the university.
And this is a lot of stuff that the first documentary didn't go into. I had so many questions, like, I'm not here to judge. What would I have done? I would have probably done the same thing in your situation. I have a young boy.
Right.
But just to be honest with myself, I mean, I have a son who I love dearly more than anything. I never had a fear of flying. I've flown my entire life. Since I've become a father, all I think about when I get on a plane is I just want to come home to my son. Lord, take care of this plane, get me to and from. But it just changes you. So you not only had the business, the court of public opinion, the financials, your home, the place that where the family comes together and is supposed to be safe and sheltered, things are going wrong, and on top of that, a sick child.
And on top of that,
you never have
I was teaching as an adjunct professor, and then at the end of the semester, they just without notice closed down the whole department. So it was just like one thing after literally another. Young married couple. We hadn't been married but 6 months.
How old were you guys as well when all this?
Y'all met
5 and 27.
Okay, y'all met when y'all was 16. I was right.
16. He was 18, home from the Navy. Came swept me off my feet.
No man in uniform, all built up and in great shape. I could see how he could have wooed you. He's a good-looking guy.
But
so y'all had the 4 children. And then when the incarceration happened, you were pregnant.
We had
the twins, right?
We had three children.
Okay.
And then while Rob was home on bond, we got pregnant with twins. And so by the time I got ready to take a plea deal, I actually left behind. My twins were 10 months old.
That's
Wow.
And so I had to say goodbye to them and our other 3 sons to go and serve my time in prison. And so you talk about heart-wrenching, lay in the bed every night crying because you know that you are solely responsible from having removed yourself from one of the duties you were most honored to perform, and that was to be a parent.
Yeah.
You know, I took mothering it very seriously. And so I was utterly disappointed in myself that the choices that I had made led to me being removed. It was one thing for my husband to be removed from us, but then for me, both of us to be removed from our children, I just didn't think that that was the best service to our state.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but we have to let God be in control of what we cannot see and cannot understand. And we often reflect back and say that this was so much bigger than us.
Yeah.
Why were we chosen?
Because you wouldn't be doing this ministry, right?
Absolutely
I
not.
think about those kind of things.
Well, not just that either, Matthew, but because of the course of study that Rob had to go on to dig us as a family out of this hole, to dig us out of this hole, his study and research would end up leading what he thought was going to be the way out for him. It was like a worst case scenario. He calls me one day, says, well, you know, baby, if it doesn't work out, I mean, they do have this law called geriatric parole that I've been studying. And as long as I serve 20 years of my time, now we're probably 13 years in at this point. And I'm like, 20 years of your time. And he's like, and I'm 45 years old. And I was like, 45? And, you know, and I just was like, no, we're not even going to look at that because it's so far away. We can't have to do that much time before we get relief. He was like, well, you know, it's just a last ditch effort to know that I won't die at Angola for taking $5,000 because that's how much we got out of the bank, right?
Yeah.
And outside of the bank because they got it right back after we went outside the bank, right? Yeah. And so, but from that study, Rob would go on to file lawsuits for that petition because when he got ready to apply, they denied him the opportunity for the geriatric parole. And so he kept pursuing it, and everybody said he was crazy. Everybody thought he was wrong, but he believed in it. And I was like, well, if you say so, baby, we're going to figure it out. I'm going to keep asking. And all of the experts said, no, he's wrong. And so we filed anyway, fought it all the way through. Well, we would end up getting out through clemency instead of through geriatric parole. And but we continued that fight once he got home because our nephew, who remained, we still had to help him get home. He couldn't come through clemency.
Oh, yeah. I meant to ask about that. Is he out now?
Yes. And so he is out because we were able to get Act 122 passed in 2021. That was an argument that Rob had started studying in 2005. We actually finally got the correct interpretation of that law in 2021. We thought it would help 400 to 600 people who had 30 years or more, but not life. It would give them a opportunity at parole. That's what geriatric parole is. And lo and behold, when it actually passed, there were over 3,000 other families that would have an opportunity to go home that thought they were going to die at Angola because of the persistence and the undeniable, you know, the determination to not be denied that this man had.
I want to talk about when he was away, what it took for you, because on the documentary, I know, you know, social media today can kind of be the highlight film, and the documentary did a great job of showing you being positive. Like I saw you calling in just to be shoo-shooed, like, oh yeah, well, we looked into it. Oh yeah, nothing today. And then you casually like, oh, did you call today? No, we didn't call today. And what, like the lady with a pleasant voice told you, she just like basically lied to you. Right. How did y'all just keep one another inspired? Like, I'm never going to give up. We're going to keep going. How did you lead at home without him? Like, it just is so mind-blowing to me. And then the success of your children, the oldest going on to become a dentist. One of the twins, I believe, was shown in like a debate college. Just how well spoken he was and intelligent and articulating himself. It's like without his father in the picture and this going on, like, just tell me about that strength and just the things that you leaned on.
You know, sometimes it would get so hard that when we would talk on the phone, it was like we could feel each other's spirit and we would just bust into a hymn. You know, it's like, I'm going to lay down my burdens down by the riverside. You know, we sing songs like This Little Light of Mine,
Yep.
I'm going to let it shine. You know, you would just have to really go back to those soul stirring. I see why our ancestors, when they were working all day from can to cane,
Sure.
they would sing hymns because hymns connect you to God, the harmony of it, and would connect us to each other. And so it was really our faith that guided us through. And then we would remember or say all the time, my head was in the lion's mouth. It wasn't that I didn't want to rip that woman a new a-hole.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I understood that my head is in the lion's mouth.
Yeah.
And so for me to attack you, it's like
would never help
ripping
this-
my head
yeah.
in the it'll never help.
Yeah.
And so that's a level of self-control and discipline that you have to have while you're trying to ease yourself out of the clutches of this heinous system that we have here in Louisiana that is so closely tied to slavery, that is slavery, because the very grounds that the 18,000 acres of sprawling land that Angola sits on, they call it Angola because of where they brought the slaves in to use it as a breeding plantation before they opened it up to be the house of chain gangs in the late 1800s. So, you know, there's a long history there so for me, in my vision of a world off the record, off of that subject matter is I envision a world when Louisiana repurposes Angola State Prison to be a museum and a wildlife and hunting and fishing grounds for families of Louisiana to come and enjoy at no cost.
I like that.
I love how you brought up that it is modern day slavery, because this is something that we talk a lot in my home about, because my husband is Black, and he really opened my eyes to really like what the prison system is. And I think it's probably because he's always had that little threat looming in the back of his head that's just like, you can't misbehave because prison is going to be very, very bad for you. And he's watched like a lot of documentaries about the prison system. He's done a lot of research, and he also opened my eyes to that there are a lot of like for-profit, like not that kind of for-profit, not our for-profit, but like prisons where they make a profit off of the people in the prison. And it really is slavery. Like slavery is still here. It's still going on.
Oh, very much
And
so.
there is something that it feels so dark, you know, and so it's like, how do you stop that? Because you look at other countries as well where they don't even really have incarceration systems and their crime rates are lower. Like, I just think about, you guys have an exceptional story in where the 6 boys turned out okay with you not in the home, but there are numerous studies that show that having the husband in the home is crucial to kids not ending up in jail. So it's like you're sending the husband to jail, you're stealing years away from those kids, and then those kids go to jail, and so you're just creating new slaves in a different way, to the point where you can blame it on them. You can blame it on them and their choices when really you put them in desperate
straits.
situations.
I want to know, what was it about the laws that when you faced your sentencing, what about being on best behavior and things that you hear about certain crimes and sentences being cut short? Why were you not offered anything like that? What
Well, those
help me to understand it.
Yeah,
And then
those.
before you do that, if you don't mind,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
close the loop on your last question about how did we make it without him being in a home. I would counter that and say he very much was in our home, that our love was so strong and so powerful that it penetrated the prison walls. And then it was probably Rob's parenting from inside a prison, you know, and him not negating that responsibility no matter where he was or what he was
There's
experiencing.
nothing to come in between
a
him
lot of
and
times parents will say, oh, I just can't because I'm this, or I'm sick, or I'm away and I gotta work, and use those excuses not to parent. But I'd love for you to share the pivotal moment.
let's go
for
into
you.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Before, if I could,
Yes, sir.
the last piece I wanted to
Do
add
anything
to
you
the
wanna
first piece, when you asked Fox, how was it that she was able to go through all of that in the absence? And with all of the denials and all the other stuff, it made me think back to when you see me walk out of the prison and I have that "Never Give Up" T-shirt on. Well, you know they don't sell those at the canteen inside the store. That shirt actually came from maybe about 7 to 8 years prior. when I was in a graphic arts and communications class, and we had to create as part of our study, we had to create a campaign. And so the campaign that I created was that I was going to do a campaign on a T-shirt, because I felt like when people put T-shirts on, it's basically like they become a walking billboard.
Yeah.
And so therein, I started a marathon inside of the prison in concert with a marathon that Fox was running outside of the prison to bring awareness to the children of incarcerated parents. That being said, I started doing those annually every year inside of the prison. I don't know if you know what it would take to convince a warden of a prison to allow me to train other men in the prison to run at a distance.
Yeah.
Like
It
crazy
doesn't,
thing.
yeah.
Right, you know.
Like, what is it? They attempted to make a break for it, and they
Right.
just,
You know, so but at any rate, we were ultimately able to do just that, and then from it turn it into to an annual run. So at the point that I put on my last run inside of the prison, I knew that I was leaving prison already. I knew I'd already gotten word from the governor that that he was going to sign my clemency, and at which point, the last message that I wanted to leave with the men inside of the prison was to never give up. And so for every run, I would get T-shirts printed at our graphic arts shop and then give them to the men that were participating in the run. So can you imagine on days when you got men all over this prison walking around and they got on these T-shirts that give off certain messaging?
Yeah.
Well, the messaging was not just for them, but it was also for me, because every time I ran into one of them, and I ran into countless ones of them because they had the T-shirts on.
Yeah.
And when I see it, it was like a reminder or a reboot
rejuvenating.
to me,
Yeah.
to say, don't ever give up.
Yeah.
And even to this day, we get messages from guys in prison that are still wearing those never give up T-shirts. But to the other point about parenting, you have to really figure out when you are inside of prison walls how to redefine your role. Your role as husband, your role as community member, your role as father, son,
Provider.
all of the things. Because inside of prison, you don't lose that part of who you are. And to that point, I realized that I wasn't able to be a dad, and go to the games and, throw the football on the weekends, go fly the kite. I wasn't able to do those dad-like things, but I knew that I still had the power to counsel. And that is a part of fathering. And in the fathering process, through just my own background and studies, I started realizing that in this country, that the average father only spends about 8 hours a month engaged with their children. And I found that out from a Father's Day edition of Men's Journal. And in it, they were talking about parents and, fathers in particular. And in this particular one, they spoke about, fathers and their parenting and how many hours they spend doing it. So I figured, well, if I get at least 2 visits a month, and if we get here early enough, leave late enough, I actually have twice the amount of time to father my children if I'm intentional about how I spend my visits.
Wow.
Always looking
than
for
the
that
average
silver
father.
lining for
Yeah,
that
you have to.
opportunity.
It's the way that you give yourself the hope, because other than that, then you're hopeless. And that's a bad place to be when you're hopeless. And but that being said, I realized that, my role kind of became more like that of a coach, because your coach wasn't on the football field with you, but you listened to him from the sideline.
Yeah.
If you play basketball, your coach is on the sideline. A boxer, coach is on the sideline. Soccer, baseball, all sporting events. The coach is coaching from the sideline, but he creates champions. And with that being said, I knew that from the sideline, meaning from my position in prison, that I could coach my boys through what I felt to be a good manhood, type of experience for them, that they would go on to defy odds. Because when you are the child of an incarcerated parent, you are 7 times more likely to wind up in prison yourself, 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, but yet, and a lot of other things. Children out of wedlock. To this date, we have no grandkids.
3
To
marriages.
this date, we have
6
enough
college
degrees.
attendees.
Yeah, we got enough degrees floating around our family. We can give y'all one. But it just goes to show that even in the midst of all of that, that our children were also committed to defying the odds.
Oh, yeah.
And so, But
Yeah.
that was it.
That was it.
I think part of the beauty of it is like how exceptional you guys are. and then the downside is that most people aren't going to be that exceptional in their resiliency and their planning. Like, obviously you guys are people who you don't make any excuses. I would say that's probably not the average person, which is why those statistics are so high. So I guess, like, how do you guys deal with your emotions? Because I can't imagine that you guys didn't feel resentment towards the situation.
Wanted to feel like a
discuss,
victim or just,
I would feel all those things, and I was just like, I imagine that you guys had to find some sort of way to get better and to cope. And what are those things? Did they come naturally? Did they come through some sort of process? What was that for you guys?
I think for
and
me,
obviously God is definitely very
Right.
prevalent in you guys' lives.
oh,
So
yes, indeed. It's like logs that used to be a part of a tree, and as logs, you just throw them on the fire. And they become fuel for the fire. So my emotions, my anger, my rage, my disappointment, all of those things became fuel for the fire. They became the thing that motivated me to say, I'm going to win. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get my lick back.
Yeah.
And it was just that thing that kept me, motivated. Every time that, a denial came up, I throw that on the fire. Disappointment came up, you throw that on the fire. You got locked up for something that you didn't do, you just throw that on the fire. And, you just kind of keep it going. But if you get to a point that you're no longer doing it, doing that or repurposing things as to how they show up in your life, then you fall subject to those things. And then, that's
And they win.
yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring it as well because we're like in a society, and I know that you guys have your podcast coming up that's going to talk a lot more about family and what family means in society. But again, with those emotions, like we're in a society where people will get divorced because someone doesn't do the dishes. That sort of thing can happen. There's a serious lack of commitment when it comes to marriage in our society, and obviously not all divorces happen that way. Like, there are good reasons for divorces, but like with those negative emotions, did you ever turn them on each other? And how did you guys, because obviously you guys have a strong union now, so if you did have those sort of moments, how did you turn that and get back to, okay, we're on the same team now?
Oh, girl, that was a lot of questions up in there, Laura.
I know.
I would probably reflect back to I turned myself in. I'm about to go serve my time. I just left our 5 children behind. And the jailer drives me from the detention center to the location where I will begin my sentence. So it was a private transport. It wasn't like on the prison bus. And when she went to drop me off, so we had about almost a 2-hour ride together, just she and I. And she begins to share with me that they used to read our letters. And she and her husband, who was also a jailer at the parish jail, became so inspired by how we communicated with each other in our letters.
Wow.
She was moved by the love that she was able to read during the worst moment of our life. And just went on to say that she was really impressed at the fact that we didn't blame each other.
Wow.
It's so easy to point the finger at somebody else, and when we do, the old saying says is what, 4 fingers pointing back at you.
That's right.
And so I think that was really one of our salvations, is that we didn't try to lay the blame on each other, but really take personal responsibility. Because at the end of the day, can't nobody do nothing to you don't allow them to do. And so when you own your life and own your journey as your own, then it gives you another level of power to navigate it. For me, it was always a matter of perspective, and so I would try to continuously study different of how to keep a positive perspective in my life. And one of those things is, my son taught me this word when he was studying for dental school. And the word was, he says, Mom, calls me one day, he says, Mom, I got a word for you. I say, okay, what's up? He says, you're going to love this one. He says, it's pronoia. I said, pronoia? I hadn't heard of that, but it sounds like paranoia. And he says it absolutely is. He says it's the reverse. It is one's belief that the universe is always conspiring on your behalf. Or what the scripture would say is that all things work for our good for those who love the Lord. And so it was the compilation of that and moving in pronoia, that even when we get the denials, that, okay, well, when we thought that we were going to get out on 2045 because the commissioner of the courts had said Rob was right, then the judge that had to sign off on it said, yeah, he may be right, but not in my court. I'm not about to open up the floodgates. Gates, and he denied the claim.
Wow.
And so I just, turned to Rob and said, well, we weren't supposed to come out through that way. That's because God wanted us to go through the highest way, which is clemency. So we would know that it was only him that got us there, right? And but just keeping the proper perspective on everything and knowing that as human beings, as Christians, as believers, as faith walkers, that all things are always working for our highest good.
Yeah. And that's the lens in which you view the world.
I have to. I have to.
Because what you focus on expands. If you'd have focused that, this is all evil, you'd have just saw bad in everything, and you wouldn't have been able to see any positive or any light or any path to him being released. Oh, that's so big. And just mindset.
For us, it was like to think that we would not regain our freedom. Was not something that we can conceptualize.
No.
To think that he would die at Angola, that our children would never know what it's like to have access to their father, it wasn't an option. And so when we talk about for-profit, we're talking about the things that we really want to see in our world. Then when we are thinking about those things, it has to be a point where we know that not having it is just not an option. And when you eliminate it, the option of it not being available to you, not failing, then you have to find a way. Your mind opens up, and it helps you find the way. You create it.
You never grow or you never learn anything from an unstressful environment. I'll take it back to sports and stuff. If you got that lightweight on the bar, you can move it 1,000 times. That muscle, you may get fatigued. You may think you're doing something, but those muscles will never grow. You'll never get stronger. It's only under test and under strain and extreme adversity that we actually improve. If I get lucky in business, we tend to think, oh, I did a good job. That was me. It was all me. You don't learn anything during those good times.
That's right.
It's when you make the mistakes that God is really calling you. He's calling you at both times, good and bad, to lean on him, realize, give him the glory and the good and the bad. But when you make those mistakes, now you have to self-reflect. What could I have improved? What is this situation trying to teach me? And you guys' purpose just grew to something so immense and so large on the impact that you're having today. Tell us a little bit about the day in the life and the ministry and what y'all are doing today. So how all of this led you to what you do.
I think Rob says it best when he says we wake up every day and just try to do a little bit of something that means a whole lot.
Yeah.
So this morning I woke up, I got an email from the UK. A guy by the name of Josh emailed me from the UK to say that he watched Time last night on Amazon Prime, and he wanted to tell me that he was so moved by our family and our story that by the end he was sobbing when Rob walked out of those gates and how much our story meant to him. So he just wanted to check and see if we were okay and how the family was doing. So, that means I woke up this morning and to know this morning that last night I did a little bit of something that meant a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I think that our days look like just trying to spread more love, being a demonstration of love to other people in our community, that it is possible, it is real, it is absolutely necessary that we find each other, that we build together, that we partner with one another, and that we make our families that central force if we want to build anything, if we want to build a better society. It all begins with our families, and our families begin with our relationships with one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there probably is what inspired our ministry, or the work that we do through our ministry. Probably two of the things that we found that have been the most cumbersome to our community is marital instability and mass incarceration, and knowing that that those things are pivotal in terms of communities progressing. We work to serve as a demonstration for other people that are experiencing similar. And so through our ministry, we travel, touring, speaking about our relationships, We do it in, basically every opportunity we get. And when we're not doing that, then we're doing the other work of helping to create strategies for our families to be reunited after stints of incarceration. So that is kind of how we spend most of our days. And I think this year is probably the one time that we're looking back and saying that we gotta get somebody else to do this part of the work, because the other piece of it is the healing process. In order to get to a space or to a place of healing, you can't continue to go back into the thing that that caused it. And so to continue to go like back in prisons trying to advocate for people that are there, continuing to show up at court dates for people and their families as they're trying to go through court matters, meeting weekly with other families, and you have to hear tell of all of these gory details of what happened to them, what happened to others, and and all those things. And it's like a scab on a sore or whatever. It's like you kind of keep pulling it back, or you keep rubbing over it, and after a while it gets tough over a period of time, but boy, it makes a mess after a while. And so with that being said, we've been working now in a way that we have been trying to use media as a way to push our messaging. It's a little less in the mud, so to speak, and it don't tax you as much. And after almost 30 years of doing this work, 21 years, 4 days of incarceration.
It will make 30 years since we entered this system.
And see, that's what some other people don't understand. There's so many layers to the story, Matthew, as I was telling you.
No, I have so many questions.
That means we got to come back.
Yeah, yeah, we do have repeat
in the
guests.
system longer than I've been alive.
Wow, look at that, And still, we are working now to get clemency, because at this particular point, what a lot of people don't know is that when I got out of prison, I didn't just get out and go free. I got out and I was still on 40 years of parole. So the amount of time that I didn't do in incarceration, I have to do the remaining 40 years of that time on parole. So I'm supervised monthly. I have to, get permission to travel, and all of the restrictions that come with it.
Still freedoms and liberties are being impacted.
Exactly. And when you think about the parallels of the system, when Fox references the institution of slavery, and then you think about mass incarceration, it's derivative. And when you think about how parallel those lives are, it's like you go from slavery to sharecropping. It's a much different condition. You know what I'm saying? Even a little lighter in ways, but taxing nonetheless. You're still not free, and you're still working to restore your rights. And so with that being said, I'm about 8 years almost now on the other side of release, but yet I am still sharecropping. I'm still having to, So, but at any rate, that is the next wave of our work. And working now to defy the odds. A lot of people believe that we have a governor in place that will not sign clemency, so men have stopped putting in for him. I just don't believe he's that person. I believe that he has a heart. I believe that when he hears the facts of my matter, I believe that they will resonate with him in a way that will say that this is unjust.
Yeah.
He's a man that has practiced law. He knows justice from injustice, and I believe that that the words that come from my application and that comes from the mouths of the people who will speak for me, I know for certain that he'll sign my clemency, and I know that he'll defy the odds of a lot of people and inspire a lot of people to know that even here, I can get justice.
Absolutely.
Dang.
Where can people find you guys? Where can people connect with you after this podcast? So I know we've talked about both the documentaries, one's streaming the first one is streaming live on Amazon Prime. The second one is at Time2
TWO movie.
Okay, so the word spelled out.
Time2movie.com. Yes. So they can purchase it there, and they can get this liberation, this freedom toolkit that we have created that accompanies the film. So families that are struggling with justice matters, that are justice involved, they can go to Time2TWOmovie.com and watch the sequel to the Oscar-nominated film and access these resources that are life-changing when you are justice impacted, or if you just want to get involved because you're tired of your state leading the whole wide world in incarceration. And so, and our website is Fox and Rob, Fox, Fox, and AND, Rob, ROB.com, foxandrob.com.
And I'm sure that'll have links to social medias. Are you guys on social medias, Instagram, Facebook,
everything
those
is Fox
things?
and Rob.
Okay, Fox and Rob.
Can't miss us.
The dynamic duo. I love it. I love it.
I'll take that,
So
Matthew.
we always ask, our podcast is called For Profit, and it doesn't have to necessarily mean the sense of the word that you think of in business. Just kind of knowing what our objective is. What does for profit, when you hear that, what does that mean to each of you?
I think to benefit from your labor. We reap what we sow. And so my prayer is that we have done enough sowing in our lifetimes that we reap in abundance. The good that we send out, it is doubled up tenfold and comes back to us. That's for profit for me.
Speaking to Matthew's heart right there. He says that
you really
all
are.
the time to me.
Yeah. For me, I would have to say that for profit tends to suggest advancement. It tends to suggest benefit from one's work or labor. But it also reminds me in it, because a lot of times when we think about for profit, sometimes profit seems to get a nasty name sometimes. And a guy told me one time, he says, that when you're on the right path, or when you're on God's path, when you're doing a work, and he says it's because it will profit you while benefiting others, but giving God the glory.
Oh, I
He
love
says,
it,
so
Rob.
when it does all those things, then your cylinder's all firing right. And so that's what I always try to work to do. I always try to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I profit from it, because my time is valuable. But the information that I'm giving is valuable enough that other people benefit from it. But it's only giving God the glory, because I know I couldn't do it without him.
I have to say, out of all of our guests, that is my favorite response. I'm just going to go ahead and say, I've never said that. You can watch all the episodes. Oh, you gave me chills. I love that, Rob. Let's
We should have
go.
brought him a trophy. We didn't know.
I know, the for-profit trophy. So,
We'll give it to him at the dinner.
Well,
The lunch dinner.
all right. Well, that's a wrap, guys.